Welcome to the 2022 Anik and Florian Podcast Awards. With your co-hosts, John Anik, Kenny Florian, with guest Ray Longo. Now your host for the evening.
Well, we wish Ken Flo's back was feeling better, but it is one of our favorite episodes of the year, and it's a brand new year. Good day to you. Good to be back in your respective lives. It is Tuesday, January 3rd. The year is 2023. My script actually says 2022, but live we said 2023. New year, episode 378 of the Anik and Florian Podcast, and today, ladies and gentlemen, the 8th annual Anik and Florian Podcast Awards. Ken Flo, what's up with your back, kid? I mean, way too much jiu-jitsu, I think, would be my thesis statement off the top. But what's going on with your back, kid?
Yeah, man, I did a lot of jiu-jitsu, and my back's been bothering me since like 2007. So it has come back to rear its ugly head. This was a long stint. I've been kind of lying flat on my back on my bed for the last week or so. So it's been hanging around for way longer than I would like. But we're doing the podcast.
We're ready to go. And the kids' jiu-jitsu, when they play jiu-jitsu with you in that little jiu-jitsu room, we'll just have to wait for a little bit as daddy gets better. So, all right, a lot to get to today. Obviously, we were off the final week of the year. Hope everybody had a good holiday. I mean, there was a lot of sort of sad mixed in with a lot of happiness, but hopefully people enjoyed some time with those that they love the most. Of course, 2022, an absolutely wild year for mixed martial arts, for the UFC. And obviously not a lot of respite in the UFC schedule annually, but we get this little pocket at the end of the year, I guess in some part due to the ESPN contract with all the college football bowl games to clear. So we're excited today to hopefully have your attention as we hand out some hardware and look back at some of the elite performers of 2022. Before we do that, though, no choice really but to get to some somber items off the top. And back on December 22nd, and I know this hit my guy Ken Flo like an absolute ton of bricks, Stephan Bonnar passed away at the age of 45. You guys obviously go back to 2005, your time on season 1 of The Ultimate Fighter. And I think we all knew that he was dealing with some things physically over the last several years as he sort of tried to transition into life out of fighting. But this came out of left field and, shook me to my core, as I know it did to you about a week ago, my man.
Yeah, it definitely did, man. I've known Stephan actually since 2004 is really when we started filming. And he was always one of those guys that I got along with. We had come from, I guess, kind of similar backgrounds and loved hanging out with each other outside of the fight game as well. He would come to Boston and train with me and my brother Keith, and always loved hanging out with Stephan. And he was such a unique guy, such a special dude. I haven't kept in contact with him really that much over the last few years. I know he was struggling and different things like that, and came around this really streak of bad luck, it seemed, both from his health perspective outside. His house had burned down at one point, and just a lot of horrible things that were happening. And that was very difficult to see. And then to see this happen at 45 years old, it was just really tough to take, man. Stephan is a guy that should be remembered as one of the toughest guys to ever compete inside the octagon. Certainly deserves a lot of credit, along with Forrest Griffin, in elevating the optics of this sport and showing how amazing and how great it can be. And he's one of those pioneers that should never be forgotten. And my heart goes out to his family and all the things that they've had to deal with in the last couple of years. And now with the passing of Stephan, I can't even imagine what they're dealing with right now.
Yeah, his wife Andrea and his son Griffin Bonnar, of course, appropriately named. So Stephan and Andrea, as Kenny knows because he was there, were at my wedding back in 2010. It was a time in my life when I was particularly close to Stephan. We were filming MMA Live essentially every week on ESPN. He had fought a couple of weeks prior and flew across the country to come to my wedding. And candidly, I didn't necessarily expect him to do that, but I wanted to extend the invitation. And it just meant the world to me, as you know, Kenny, at the time. I mean, my man Ken Flo's from Massachusetts. We knew he was going to show up. But for Bonnar, 2 weeks after his fight to fly across the country, and I remember Stefan and Andrea sort of confronting family members of mine who they didn't think were like supportive and being like, hey, your son's on TV, you may want to, or your relatives on TV, you may want to start to pay attention a little bit, So I just have so much love for this family. And I did, when I was in Las Vegas for a time, attend, I think maybe his son's 5th or 6th birthday party. But yeah, my heart goes out to the family and, of course, to Forrest Griffin, who I know is inexorably linked to Stefan. This is going to hit him particularly hard. And, a couple things I just want to get to before we move on. And we are going to name our Fight of the Year award heretofore the American Psycho Stephan Bonnar Fight of the Year award. But April 9th, 2005 is ubiquitously regarded as the fight that really either saved the UFC or put mixed martial arts on the map domestically in the United States, the Ultimate Fighter finale between Forrest Griffin and Stephan Bonnar, immortalizing the UFC Hall of Fame in 2013. And you're smack dab in the middle of all of this, right? You're in the middleweight final fighting Diego Sanchez right before that fight. Before I share some final thoughts on Stephan, any recollections for you about that time in your life and the fight that preceded, one of the greatest fights of all time?
Again, if it was another fight like mine and Diego Sanchez, you could have a strong argument that the sport wouldn't be where it is. It was a shellacking in the middleweight final of Diego beating me up. But this final was just, talk about synchronicity and everything kind of coming together at the right time. For these two very determined and tough individuals that fought in that finale that day. It was the perfect moment that is responsible for the popularity of the sport. Hey, maybe it would have happened later, but the fact that it happened back then in 2005 is because of that final between Forrest Griffin and Stephan Bonnar. So, and just, the two personalities involved, not only it was an amazing fight, but those two guys had so much charisma, so much personality. It really was a special time for sure. And I remember being at the hospital with Stephan and Forrest, talking to them about their fight. And yeah, it was just an amazing time, absolutely magical time, man.
And he was a magical guy. And he really, as I posted on Instagram, he made you feel like $1 million, right? Honestly, just so blown away that he would go out of his way to attend my wedding back in the day. It was a gesture that will stick with me forever. Last thought, Kenny, on Stephan Bonnar, at least the broadcaster. I thought he was kind of underappreciated in that world. I thought he had a great energy, a unique sound. He was analytical. He was critical. And he'll always have the Showtime kick. Reacting to that particular highlight in mixed martial arts at that time in real time. And I don't know, I think maybe you were supposed to call the show or couldn't. I don't know. I feel like there was some tie in there. But I'm glad that Stephan had that moment as a broadcaster because obviously that highlight's going to withstand the test of time.
No question about it. I think he was underappreciated there as well. And I thought he did a fantastic job. We came up together doing things like MMA Live and some of the pre and post fight shows. We were, in the UFC back then. And of course, we both did work for the WEC back in the day. So to see him get that opportunity and to see him shining at that point of his career was awesome to see. I thought it was well deserved. And people forget, what a voice he had and the kind of analytical mind and passion that he had for martial arts and mixed martial arts in general.
Well, I know a lot of us are hoping to do what we can to support the family from afar as we continue to mourn the loss of our late great friend, the UFC legend Stephan Bonnar. Also of note on the mixed martial arts front, Kenny, Damir Ismagulov, 24-2 overall, fought recently against Arman Tsarukyan, I believe. Unfortunately, due to circumstances and health problems, he says he is ending his sports career. He wrote on Instagram, and through the Google translation, thanks to all those who were by my side, regardless of the result in the battle, so sincerely were hurt and worried. It was an interesting journey, a moment to remember. Hugs, everyone. Great talent, I got a text from Joe Rogan that this was the case, and really stunning. An outstanding athlete whose prime is cut down. I don't know the extent of the health problems, but just want to give him some acknowledgement off the top of the show, Ken Flo. Really disappointing after I think his star power was really starting to grow, to see him forced to walk away. And hopefully it's nothing, too long term on the health front.
Yeah, that's right. And, he was an extremely talented fighter, very skilled, had a lot of potential. And, to see things like this, whether it's, unfortunate health issues that happen, of course, the football game from last night and you have something like this or someone passing away. it's another reminder that there are things that are much bigger and much more important than sports itself. And I'm dealing with a little back injury, but every time these things come around, or you see or hear something like this that's tragic, someone's health involved, someone passing away, these are all reminders for us to understand that there are things that are much more important than sports. And these are also things that we take for granted. I take my health for granted almost all the time. I forget about it. And then quickly you're reminded, if you come down with the flu or, a back injury, you're, oh man, I remember what it was like to be at 100% and to be mobile. And, you take for granted these things and just being able to lift up your kids or spend time with family. So yeah, man, it's another reminder. And I know you've mentioned it before, but as you get older, you kind of hear about all these other things, and you come hopefully over time to have a greater appreciation for the little things, man. And these things can happen at any time. Your health is all you got. If you don't have that, you don't have anything. So I hope he's able to resolve whatever it is. And then, if he decides he wants to come back or whatever at the right time, that's another thing. But obviously getting healthy is his main battle right now.
And Kenny also mentioned the football game, as most of you would have to know by now, even internationally. Buffalo Bills safety on Monday Night Football, Damar Hamlin, suffered cardiac arrest reportedly on the field. His heartbeat was restored on the field, and we're waiting on reports, obviously, of the 24-year-old, but the entire world essentially came to a standstill. Monday Night Football is obviously a big deal in this country, and this was a massive game between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Buffalo Bills. And I don't know, man, just absolutely jarring and shaking for all of us who were watching live. And I don't know, man, just keep checking that Twitter machine every other minute to hope for a good sort of update in terms of, him coming to, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I hope he's able to come back from this. That was really scary. I was watching that live, and it was unlike anything I've seen before, really, on the football field. And again, props also to the people who were on the field who were able to bring him back to life. Having that kind of support, was crucial during that critical time. It looked like it was a direct hit to his heart. Not absolutely sure, but these are things that can happen. It can happen in the fight game. You get hit in the heart with a certain amount of impact at the wrong time, at the wrong place, and these are things that can happen. So I hope he's able to make a full recovery, man.
Yeah, I think that's where a lot of our hearts and minds went, just thinking about the fight game. And there have been instances in soccer and other sports where things like this have happened, but few and far between, thankfully. But yes, this AED, I guess, the automated external defibrillator used on the spot, likely saved his life. So to all the medical personnel in Cincinnati, and I know they've had to deal with a lot of high-profile cases. We're all hoping for the best for Damar Hamlin, who seems like just such a good guy. And increasingly, even at 24, a unifying force on the team and everything else. All right, we got to get into the awards, and I promise the tone of this Anik and Florian podcast is going to get celebratory in nature from this moment on. 8th Annual Anik and Florian Podcast Awards, 10 awards to be handed out today. Only one rule. Kenny and I cannot pick the same winner. So if Kenny picks, Leon Edwards for his knockout of the year, I cannot. By the way, it's like, what award do you give Leon Edwards in this exercise, right? Like, Leon, if this was a true meritocracy, I might sit here and give you the upset of the year, the knockout of the year, and the male fighter of the year. But we also have sort of one underlying rule. We couldn't each give you 3 trophies. So Leon Edwards is going to get richer today, and hopefully so will the listenership and viewership at large. All right, first award for us, UFC Rookie of the Year. First is Ken Flo, and he was wicked impressed by this Aussie out of Perth.
Kenny Florian's 2022 UFC Rookie of the Year, Jack Della Maddalena.
He's getting to work. This is what he goes. Della Maddalena ripped by. That's it. It's over. 12 in a row for Jack Della Maddalena. Wow. The body, that body shot was nasty. Trickled him. You spoke about it. He's still hurt right now.
And there's the reaction from Ben Vickers and the scrappy MMA team, Jack Della Maddalena.
Fight.
100%. I walked out and I saw my Perth boys standing right as I walk out. And that gave me the energy to knock him out cold. Aussie, Aussie, Aussie! 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 Aussie, Aussie, Aussie! If anyone pulls out tonight, I'm ready to go. Let's do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, give it up
for Jack Della Maddalena.
Well, we are not in Perth, but it certainly feels that way.
Not in Perth yet, but we will be there shortly. Audio courtesy of UFCFightPass.com. Ken Flo, your Rookie of the Year 2022. The guy with 2 last names, Jack Della Maddalena.
Yeah, that's right. Listen, I was really impressed with Jack Della Maddalena. His footwork, his angles, how he was working his punches to become very dangerous in mixed martial arts was really impressive to me, especially coming in there in his debut. And you look at what he did in the UFC. He debuted on January 22nd of last year. And he's beaten everybody by TKO punches, on the feet, the way he sets everything up and feints and just looks very, relaxed and just an absolute killer on the feet. So, what was it? Pete Rodriguez, Ramazan Emeev, and Danny Roberts, all by TKO, all in round 1. I think that's a hell of a year. That's how you want to do it. If you want to be a rookie in the UFC and make some noise, it doesn't get any better than that.
It really would be cool if there was a group of former fighters, potentially media members, and an actual voting body that voted on a real set of awards like this. We got the Anik and Florian Podcast Awards, though, and I kind of wanted to give Raul Rosas Jr., just given the destructive nature of his UFC debut, my 2022 Rookie of the Year. But I landed on a future contender, potentially in 2 divisions. I just kept coming back to this guy, my top UFC rookie in 2022.
John Anik's 2022 UFC Rookie of the Year, Jailton Almeida.
Jailton Almeida, his fighting inspiration, one Daniel Cormier. We'll see if Jailton can follow in those big footsteps.
Probably why I like him so much. I mean, Jailton is huge.
There's the tap. Wow. Too easy. Another quick night at the office for Maljadinho. Jailton Almeida.
So good. He's good grappling, man. So good.
Certainly a case of pick your poison when facing Jailton Almeida, who gets yet another first round finish, 13th of his career.
Jailton Almeida, ladies and gentlemen.
I love you, Vegas!
And Almeida. Stunning that Cody Merrow did not drop a Maljadinho in there. Jailton Almeida, 3-0 in the UFC in 2022, all finishes. He had fights canceled twice with both Maxim Grishin and Shamil Abdurrahimov, whom he is now scheduled a 3rd time to fight in Brazil 18 days from now at UFC 283. Almeida's ready to contend right now. Not a lot of people going to be burning up Mick Maynard's phone line looking to fight that guy. Jailton Almeida, definitely my most impressive rookie of 2022. Honorable mention, though, Michael Morales out of Ecuador, 23 years old. 2 finishes on pay-per-view cards. Actually, first pay-per-view main card bout of the year back in January. He finished Trevin Giles. Michael Morales, a beast, and another guy who I think is ready to contend despite being just 23 years of age. All right.